If you've ever thought about covering up, reworking, or removing a tattoo, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Sarah Beth Clark, if you don't already know me, and I have covered up, reworked, and removed tattoos, and today we're gonna have a little chat while I get ready and put on my makeup for the day and talk about my experience with a cover-up, rework, and my removal, which I have videos about on my channel, and the pros and cons of each a little bit more objectively, as well as my experience more personally. Let's start by talking about my forearm. This one. All the way back in, I believe it was 2007, maybe 2008, I started a bat half sleeve as a walk-in. This was the beginning of my first big piece, and I really did not know what I was doing, so I made the mistake of trusting the artist. Initially, what I wanted was bats looking like they were flying up my arm, so little bats turning into like bigger bats, and that's when he said that he knew better. So he did just these larger bats like all over my arm. He said that he was going to put something behind it so it would look more 3D, it would look better than my concept, which was something I'd seen, I think, in a tattoo magazine. But whenever I would see him and ask, hey, what are we gonna do with this? For the next couple of years, every single time he would tell me, well, what if we put zombies behind it? What if we put a haunted house behind it? And I would have to keep saying, that is not the style that I want. I don't want gore, I don't want zombies. Long story short, after several years of this and finally realizing that he did not in fact have a concept, and I don't think he really cared, I ended up talking to another artist who had done at least one piece on me that I would see out in the bars that I worked in all the time, and he put tribal wind behind it, which was really like the best I could hope for at that point, to try to make it look a little bit more complete and a little bit less like I just had Bacardi bats stamped all over my arm. I believe that the tribal wind was 2009 or 2010. And I lived like that for quite a few years. At the time, laser tattoo removal was not what it is now, and I was a little bit afraid of it, so I opted for a cover-up instead. Originally, I talked about just doing a blackout because this is when blackouts were very popular, and my now husband was like, absolutely not. He would never tell me what to do with my body, okay? If it was what I really wanted to do, he would have just sighed and rolled his eyes, but I'm so glad that I let him talk me out of that. So I found Aaron Neiman in Las Vegas, where we were living at the time, and he did this fantastic galaxy cover up. I still get compliments on it to this day, but the problem that I have with it is it's just so dark. I would not have opted for a tattoo as dark as this. None of my other tattoos are this dark. It is completely packed full of ink and lots of colors, so at this point, if I decided I wanted to remove it, maybe I could, but it would be an absolute nightmare and so painful. Because it has so much ink just packed in there, it's held up really well for over a decade. I think like a little bit of the tribal wind and one bat wing, but otherwise, like the bats never came through or anything. So what are the pros of getting a cover up? It's definitely cheaper than removal. We'll get to that in a bit here. You do get instant results. So it may take a few sessions, but it'll be covered if it's done well. And if the artist is skilled, it can look great. I always get haters on my videos that say, you know, your tattoos are ugly or whatever, but I get stopped in public for this tattoo still. Now for the cons. The cover-up generally has to be darker and larger. So if you were already kind of unhappy with the piece, you were maybe feeling like you don't know for sure if you want to keep it there, then maybe think twice about covering it up, because if you did not like the original, you might regret having a larger, darker piece even more. Definitely a con. And it can limit your future options for removal. So I know a lot of people are getting removals now on those blackout sleeves that they got when that was kind of a cool thing to do. And it's possible, but it's a pain. One thing that you can do is opt for a few laser sessions first, and that will give you a lot more options for what you can cover up a piece with to just lighten it. Then you don't have to do like as heavy or dark of a cover up. So that's kind of a little compromise if you have a piece that you're not happy with, but you're not willing to spend what it costs, the time, money, energy, pain to fully remove your tattoo with laser. That's like 8 to 10 plus sessions depending on what the tattoo is. Next, let's talk about a rework. I actually didn't wear something where you could see my chest piece in this video, which wasn't the smartest. I feel like I almost always do. I never wear anything that's this high next, but I did. So you can go and look at my chest piece removal video if you want to see a little bit more of that. I will put a picture of it on the screen for reference. I got the original chest piece in 2011 after I got my breast implants. At the time, I was a dancer, and this is not going to make a lot of sense to many of you, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me when I think back on it. It sounds kind of backwards, but I was kind of uncomfortable with like the amount and type of attention that I was getting after I got my breast implants. So getting this giant chest piece in the middle of my chest was kind of a way of reclaiming my body a little bit, making it so I was less appealing to a lot of guys, and I've mentioned this before. There are so many guys that actually fetishize tattoos that it really kind of backfired on me in a way. So not only did I not make probably as much money from general public, but I also attracted worse guys, just the worst. Even though I was still tanning and definitely not babying my skin at the time that I got the main part of this chest piece, it's actually held up really well for being like almost 15 years old. Fast forward quite a few years, I removed my breast implants in 2016, and then by 2017, I was feeling like I might want to remove this tattoo. It served its purpose. It didn't feel like me anymore. But at that time, I was a full-time content creator, a commercial model and actor, which means that I was doing like commercial shoots, not trying to be on TV shows or anything. And my chest was pretty much always like out there. So I really did not feel like it was possible for me at the time to go through the process of removal and have just this patchy, splotchy tattoo on my chest. It might hurt my ability to get jobs. So instead I opted to rework it. I went back to the same artist who did the original tattoo, Carl Fuchs. He's one of the owners at Red 5, and he added this beautiful filigree design behind it, connecting it more to my right sleeve, making it sort of match that better. He did a truly incredible job, and it helped the tattoo feel more complete. And I sort of leaned into being more heavily tattooed after that. I think I had shaved my head, and that was just kind of like who I was. But in hindsight, and maybe you can guess where this is going, I really sort of wish that I had opted for removal instead. So that is what I'm working on now. Never too late. And thinking about not having it is actually kind of weird. I'll talk about that more in another video. So pros and cons of rework. Again, reworking, less expensive than removal. Reworking can breathe new life into an older tattoo, maybe one that's a little bit more poorly done than the rest of the work you have. And reworking can also create cohesion between pieces. So kind of like it did for me, where I now have a bit more cohesion between these pieces here. And the cons of reworking a piece: adding more ink. Once again, if you change your mind and decide that you do actually want to remove it later, it will be a longer and more difficult process. Thankfully for me, my rework, the stuff I added behind it, is actually really light gray wash, so theoretically that should take less sessions of removal than the main piece. We'll see. Stay tuned for that. And it might just delay your regret instead of resolving it. Now let's talk about removal. I don't feel like I need to say too much about this because I have videos about this on my channel that you can go look at and listen to. I've had 7 sessions on my upper arm so far, a bunch on my wrist, which you can't really see. I'm pretty much removing all of my little one-off tattoos from the early 2000s. And I've actually had one session on this lady at the top of my right arm as well. This was several years ago, and I just realized recently how much that she has lightened since I had just that one session. The only exception of a tattoo that I might actually have reworked and have something else done to it would be my upper right shoulder here. I'd like to have something there other than a lady. My idea to get a lady at the top of each shoulder, in retrospect, 2 out of 10. And I'm also hoping for total removal on my chest piece. Did I say that already? We're having our first truly hot day here and I am sweating. I am like sweating so much that I think that I can hear my armpits. I hope that you cannot hear my sweaty armpits making sweaty armpit noises. At least no one can smell me over the internet, so that's good. Let's talk pros and cons of removal. Pros of removal, obviously you're opening up the possibility for a completely fresh start. You can either completely remove a tattoo, and even if you don't opt for total removal, another pro of laser removal is lightening a tattoo so that you don't have to get a big heavy dark cover up like I said in the beginning. And total removal can be emotionally freeing, especially if you feel like your tattoo does not reflect who you are anymore. I guess that could go for any of them, but we'll stick that here. Cons of removal, extremely painful. Much more painful than getting the tattoo, even though it doesn't take as long. It's over much quicker if you've seen my videos, but it hurts so much worse. I always say that it's all of the pain of however much it hurt to get your tattoo just smooshed down into a concentrated few minutes or seconds, depending on how big it is. It just hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. It is expensive. It is quite often many times the initial cost of getting a tattoo, especially if you had just a small tattoo that was like the shop minimum of $40 or $70 or whatever. It's gonna cost you a lot more than that to remove it. There's also a risk of scarring if you get a bad tech or if you do not do a good job of healing it and you can't have a tan and you can't really be in the sun afterwards because it's much more photosensitive. So it's a little bit of a pain. And where does the ink go? People always ask about this. It gets superheated and broken down and has to go through your lymphatic system and all of the filtration systems of your body, and we don't really know what is in tattoo inks, especially in the US, because they're not really regulated, so that's another kind of a con. YOLO, I'm doing it anyway. Different colors also break down at different wavelengths, and if your tattoo ink is too close to the color of your skin, so for me that would be pinks and yellows, and especially white ink, it may never totally remove. So I don't know if you can see, I know I have yellow here that has really not faded nearly as much as the rest of the ink. I do not regret the path that I've taken with my tattoos. I do regret my tattoos, don't get me wrong, but the choices I've made led me to where I am today, and so overall, net neutral. I do think it's important to be honest about how your relationship with your body can change from the time you're in your 20s to your 30s to your 40s, and maybe it won't for you, but for me it did. What felt like self-expression to me in my 20s does not necessarily reflect who I am today at 38 years old, and that's okay. I was kind of a dork, and I was in my 20s. I was a baby adult. I didn't know anything. Each step along the way, whether it was a cover-up, reworking, or removing, has served me well in each different season of my life. And now I'm simply in a season where it feels like less is more. I am not anti-tattoo. I still love the art form, and I may even get tattooed again. Like I said, I might end up reworking my right arm, who knows? But for now, personally, I'm fairly focused on clearing the canvas. I've learned a lot about patience, intention, and how much power there is in just letting go of who you used to be. If you're considering a tattoo cover-up, rework, or removal, I hope that this has given you something to think about and gives you a little bit of perspective. There is no right choice. It really just depends on you, where you are in your journey, and you never know where you're gonna end up. It's all about what feels the most aligned with you where you are now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you are a woman or a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, feel free to subscribe. That is who I am creating my content for. You can also, if you are a member of those communities, give me a follow over on Instagram at Sarah Overshares. I am always oversharing, especially my stories over there. So if you want to keep up with the day-to-day, that's where it is. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!